And I was like, okay,
Like furiously flipping through the
yeah,
case that you didn't read last night.
I was prepared,
Um,
but it was like, let me figure out what happened to these cranberries.
hey, let's get this started. Can we start off by having you introduce yourself briefly?
Sure, Mike. I am Nigel Holley. Go ahead and get this out of the way. HBS class of 2016.
Class 2016. Nice, nice. HBS class 2016. So same class, same section.
Yep.
So we know each other. But 2016. Take me back to prior to 2014 when we entered business school.
hmm
What kind of career did you have pre business school?
So I think I might have been the only one of these in our class, at least, but I was an underground coal miner in my life prior to business school. My undergrad degree was mining engineering. I spent summers in college working underground in West Virginia. Enjoyed it quite a bit, even when I was about as low on the call it totem pole as one could possibly get, and I had a blast with the job. And so it was like, I probably need to keep doing this for my career. But yeah, that took me to New Mexico for 7 years, and that's what I was doing out there. Spent time in engineering, production, and then kind of what I would call project management, for lack of a better term. And yeah, that's what I did pre
Yeah,
HBS.
no, and I remember first meeting you or like hearing your introduction, maybe that first week of school and class, and I was like so fascinated by that work. 'Cause I personally had not. You're still the only person that I know in the world that has done this type of work. A lot of people come into business school and they have job titles, or just generally, people have job titles like digital media strategist, project project manager. These job titles can mean a lot of different things. So when you say underground coal miner, like take us take us into a normal day in your life as an underground coal miner. Is that exact? Is the title accurate to what you did?
I mean, yes, yes. Ultimately, I will say I had different positions under what I would call the underground coal umbrella. So, I mean, starting off a summer of 2005, I was a card carrying member of the United Mine Workers of America. So, I mean, I was a union hourly hand. Uh, Go drive an hour to the mine in the morning, take an elevator ride down underground about 1,700 feet, hop in a man trip, which operates DC electricity on rail underground, ride that about an hour to the working area of the mine and get my hands dirty. My first day underground, I spent like 5 hours just straight shoveling rock dust. So that was my introduction. Here's your shovel. This is what you get to do today. Um,
Okay, so yeah, I will say based on that description, definitely underground coal miner is a pretty explicit job title. That's what you
yeah,
were doing.
yeah. I managed to progress from that. As I mentioned, engineering, technical roles. So people don't think of mining engineering, but you've really got to design. Our job as mining engineers is to figure out what is the best way to get the ore that geologists have found out of the mine, out of the ground, so that it can then be used by whatever person wants it next. But so yeah, technical roles for a few years. Then probably kind of my professional break, if you will, that really is what helped me, I think, get into HBS is um, I had the opportunity to get a pretty significant promotion to being a production superintendent. So, 3.5 years or so into my full time professional career, I had about 10 sort of direct reports, and then below them, I don't know, 8 or 9 crews of 10 to 12 people. So, was managing the work on a day to day basis of 130 people or so. And so that certainly was a wonderful learning opportunity from a leadership standpoint. But you asked me to describe my typical day. Get to work at 6 o'clock in the morning. Try to figure out what's happened in the since I left the previous day. have pre-shift meetings at 6:30 before day shift starts at 7, line out the crews for what we're responsible for, wait for graveyard shift to get out of the mine at about 8 to get a good update of where things stand, and then head underground about 8:30 or so to go see what's happening that day, interact with the crews, make sure I can see for myself what it is that the challenges we're facing, and help out wherever I could. I was fortunate, even though we were an operation represented by a collective bargaining agreement, that I never did get a grievance filed against me for helping out, but I still did my best to lend a hand where I could. People like to say that a great coal miner is made by a weak mind and a strong back, and I might have had a medium strength back, but I tried to help out where I could.
Yeah, hey, that's incredible. I think pre-MBA experience. First of all, extremely unique background, right? Like you said, I think you're the only person that I've met during our class that had a similar background of mining, and then significant leadership experience, managing 130 people in your scope as a classic finance guy coming into business school, doing 2 years of banking, like 2 years of M&A corp dev, like in house. I had to scrape my way into like trying to convey any type of leadership experience that I had. I was like, I led the development of this pitch deck. I I did it. I did it. I came up with the ideas and then I printed it out as well. So I was like scraping the bottom of the barrel for anything I can hang my fingers into, stick my fingers into. But you had experience, leadership experience of people that probably a lot of people work for decades before they get. So that's really cool. I have to ask you something too. I think it's just I had a light bulb moment. I've known you for a long time. On your LinkedIn profile,
Mm-hmm.
it says Nigel Holley, PE.
Yes.
PE, it's come to my understanding through our conversation right now, that PE does not stand for what PE normally stands for in business school.
No,
Is that
I am not that kind of PE bro. I am a professional engineer, bro.
Professional, that's what that stands for. I've always wondered. I thought you
Yeah.
were just peacocking a little bit to get that KKR internship.
No, no. I should. I wish I had thought about that sooner. But yeah, that PE stands for professional engineer. So it's a license that I maintain.
All right, that mystery has been cleared up for me. It's only taken me 10 years. Thanks for sharing that. That's a really cool, I think, unique pre-business school background. You probably realize that pretty soon. You own a MBA program. Once we're in the class, but yeah, share with us, if you will, like why you decided to pursue an MBA in the first place.
Okay. So one good thing or a circumstance of working in the mining industry is you can't really move the ore to where you want it to be. It's where it was formed over millions of years ago. So as a 20 something living in Farmington, New Mexico, a town of about 40,000 people, largely dominated by oil field. There was a couple of things. One, I just was looking for a little bit different living environment, bigger city, just a new experience kind of thing. But more specifically, as I looked at um, positions that I thought I aspired to achieve at some point in my career, and maybe I should have mentioned this earlier, I worked for BHP. There was BHP Billiton at the time. It's BHP now. They're the largest mining company in the world, but virtually no presence in the United States. But as I saw people get promoted or get these positions that I thought I wanted to get one day, the sort of common denominator was that all the folks in those roles had some type of advanced degree. It wasn't necessarily an MBA. I know there were a couple that had law degrees, a couple that had like PhD type degrees or other specialty masters, but the common denominator was everyone that I saw in those positions had some type of advanced degree. So I started asking around a little bit just on advice where people might direct me, and an MBA was kind of where things settled out. Um, and yeah, I mean, I didn't know we had our asset president at the time. He had an MBA from Wharton. Um, and I think we actually had an intern in what was our pseudo corporate office in town that had gone to HBS actually. But other than meeting him briefly at a dinner the summer that he was an intern, like, I didn't have any connections to business school type folks
Yeah.
before I got into the ring and started applying.
Yeah. So totally different experience than me, working in investment banking. It's very hierarchical. My manager was a, post MBA associate,
Hmm.
my VP got it, I'm saying just generally speaking, my VP got their MBA,
Yep.
5 years, prior. MD, same thing, 5 years prior to them. So it's just kind of like you're around a lot of MBAs. So you hear about it. It almost kind of like, moves you in that direction because you hear a lot of great things about MBA programs
Hmm.
and you're on that similar track, but you kind of took your own kind of path here. But you did see a theme, which was cool. You saw advanced degrees at people in senior leadership roles at the company, that you thought roles that you thought you might want to track into
Hmm.
one day.
Yep.
Okay, so you saw that and you're like, okay, let me test the waters here. Let me apply to some schools. And so there's a lot of components to the application process. One of the ones that can really differentiate you from other applicants or really showcase why you think you'd be a good fit for any specific program is obviously the essay. And so I was wondering if you remember, Nigel, what you wrote in your essays, what you shared about yourself, and if you could share with us. I think it could be cool to hear what you shared. And this is kind of like a 10-year reflection, 10 years since you wrote these essays.
So um, let me let me give a little bit of flavor, or I'll come back to this, but I do want to say how I went about applying to business schools is not how anyone should do it. Like, if I was going to recommend
Disclaimer.
how someone do it, like, I will tell you what not to do, because I don't, in hindsight, I didn't approach it right at all. But so I applied to three schools. Two of the three had mandatory essays at the time. I remember HBS's was actually optional. You didn't have to submit one that year. Although of having conversation with folks that we went to school in our class, I think I've only met one person that didn't actually submit an essay.
Yeah.
If my memory works right, but you
Yeah, I
know,
actually forgot that. I just thought it was mandatory. I never. So,
um, but yeah, so I wrote one anyway. And the thing that I remember, and I believe it's still the charge of the school is to educate leaders who will make a difference in the world, something to that effect. And I know in my HBS essay, I managed to catch on to that, and really emphasize that leadership was what I wanted to learn from my MBA experience. And I said something to the effect of, um, you know, business skills and financial analysis and all that kind of stuff that can be learned from textbooks and online classes, but leadership can only be learned by doing. And I wanted to have that experience that was really focused in that area, which was why I was applying to HBS. And fortunately, I think that resonated with whoever was happened to read my essay that day. I don't remember the details, and I won't go into them. I Not long ago, came across my essays from other all my applications, and yeah, they were terrible at the other two schools. Or I'll say
how did it make you feel reading those?
it was rough. Well, it was just clear that I wasn't a fit for those programs,
Hmm.
and that's probably what I want to allude to, or alluded to earlier. I did it all wrong. As we already touched on, I didn't have like a lot of connections at these business schools to know really what the focus of the different schools were. In hindsight now, there's your general management schools. There's kind of like the quant focused programs, and there's probably a few other differentiators that you could bucket business schools into. And I didn't know that, and so I didn't take that into consideration. And so, at least one of the schools I applied to, I never should have even taken the time to write that application and work on that stuff because it wasn't going to be a good fit.
Hmm.
And I would have what I know now, I definitely would have substituted and applied to a couple of other programs that would have been more of a, that general management focus, which was kind of what I was looking for at that time.
Yeah. No, that's terrific feedback, and I appreciate you sharing it. And I appreciate the way you're presenting it. It's like, hey, don't do what I did. But I think in essence, what you're saying is like learn a little bit about the schools before you jump in, dive
Yes.
headfirst into the application process because takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of time, takes a lot of resources to do an application to do it right. I think,
Yep.
and so you want to make sure you're allocating your precious time in the right places. It's
Yes.
really a lot of the inspiration for what this is, this video series, so people can get to know you know multiple people from different business schools, starting here
Hmm.
with HBS, to get a feel for the people, the alumni, their experiences, to see if like, hey, is this a good place for me um, right now where I'm at? So it's
Yep.
yeah, full circle here.
Yeah.
Appreciate you
I
sharing.
mean, it was certainly not easy to get to like Boston from Farmington, New Mexico. But if someone is a prospective business school student, I highly recommend going and visiting and seeing for yourself sort of what the place is all about, because I think that will give you a very early indication of whether or not it would remotely be a fit for you. And I was
Yeah,
just fortunate that it kind of worked out on my end.
it worked out. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, Great. Hey, so switching gears here a little bit, we
Hmm.
just talked about the application process, and now I want to get you thinking about sitting in Baker. Was that the building with all the
Aldrich.
classrooms? Aldridge,
Aldrich.
sitting in Aldridge. I remember from my purview in our section, you were like the bottom right hand side of the room. Was it
Second semester, I was
second
like,
semester you were?
yeah, second semester, I was right on the aisle,
Yeah,
on the right hand aisle,
on the right hand eye. Okay, that was second. First semester, then you were middle in like
on the
left
left hand
or
aisle, on the
left
like
hand eye.
left wing side of the aisle, like middle row.
Okay, yeah, got
Hmm.
it. I remember that now. Yeah, so going back to your time at HBS, do you have a favorite class, professor, experience, or something like really, something that you remember very fondly that you could share with the prospective applicants here?
Academically, ooh, I mean, my favorite memories probably were born out of otherwise negative situations, maybe, is what I would say. Or, I really liked in Fin 1, um, early in the year, there was a question that went to a former finance guy who was one of my roommates second year, and he answered it in 100% all like finance PE bro terms, and the professor looked at him and just said, "I have no idea what you just said to me." Now, fast forward a semester, or maybe even two, it might have taken to Fin 2 for me to figure this out. In hindsight, he answered that question like 1,000% correct. Um, but the professor was emphasizing clear communication in language that people can understand. And so from an academic standpoint, that stands out. Um, the flip side, Fin 2, I can't remember our professor's name, but when he pretty much told us we were like the worst section that he
Of
had
all time
ever
that you ever
taught.
had?
Yeah, like in the history.
Oh man, I haven't thought about that moment in a long time, but it's burned in my brain. You just
Yeah,
like brought it back.
I mean, yeah, that was just historic. Sophia
Historic,
and
yeah, that's truly
BJ
historic.
both pretty much said my dog ate my homework, kind of excuses, and he
Yeah,
was so furious, and it was pretty excellent. Um, Outside of the classroom, I'll probably fast forward to second year. I mean, there's just too many memories, but living with three other members of our section, the way that worked out, um, we were fortunate enough to live right on sort of the pathway from one of the train stations to campus, and so we pretty much had an open door, and it was kind of a exciting to go home and just open the door and see who was hanging out in our living room that day, because
Yeah,
there were people from our section or others that knew we lived there that just would stop in all the time, and it was just great conversation no matter who was there, and I absolutely miss that.
that is a really good time, the backyard and everything. I think you mentioned a lot of great memories that are telling of like what the experience at HBS
Hmm.
is like in different ways. One is like the way all classes are taught. You're in this classroom using the case method, and part of the case method is that the teacher is not really teaching in the traditional sense, like going through a lesson and walking step by step through a finance problem or problem set like I actually experienced in undergrad.
Okay.
That's actually how it was done. Overhead projector, these numbers, we're going to calculate a return, we're going to use this interest rate. It's a little bit different, I think, at the case method. And it was interesting for me having experienced both methodologies. I found it challenging, the case method, to learn a subject like finance or accounting, because what you were describing is we're really relying on our peers, our classmates, to share their
Hmm.
expertise and to explain things to us in the classroom setting, and that's how we learn. And I think what our professor was trying to say, emphasize, is that you know when you're asked to share your perspective on something, you have to say it in a way that speaks
Yep.
to the whole class, not just the folks that came up in private equity. And that being able to explain something clearly and concisely in simple terms is another
Hmm.
level of mastery that I think he was
Oh,
pushing
definitely.
our classmates to get to. So just an example of how uh, even the finance experts, who we had a bunch, just top finance guys, um, that even they had another level to get to where they could explain these things to
Hey,
to
I'm right
people
there
like
with you,
me.
man.
Yeah, we were there together. Um, yeah, and then just spending time. Your personal anecdote about just hanging out with the three classmates and living together. It reminds me of what was that college basketball player? They're like, hey, what's your like? He was like, it was the postseason like conference, or press conference, and they're like, what's your favorite memory? And he was just memory from the season. He was just like, or from your time at this university. I got to pull up, and he's like crying out of like emotion. He was
I can't
just going
remember
through
who
the
that
food.
was. I remember seeing that, but I can't place who it was.
I gotta show you that. Yeah. Cool. No, that's no that you're bringing a lot of awesome memories back for me too. So I think we're in the right state of mind
Sure
here.
thing.
We're gonna keep it moving a little bit, and so post MBA, um, maybe you could tell us a little bit actually about where what you do today. Are you still in mining? You mentioned earlier that you saw some of
Hmm.
your executives at the company you're working at. And you're like, hey, that looks like
Yep.
a path that I could take, that I'm interested in. Maybe you go down this MBA path. Yeah. Did you end up doing that, or what are you up to today?
So, immediately out of business school, I did stay in the mining and metals industry. I was working for Alcoa in their mining business, and then bounced around a little bit for a couple of years. I worked and lived in Brazil for a little while, and then spent a whole lot of time in Australia, and actually almost moved there. Got offered a position there, which was probably about my dream job that I wanted, but the timing just wasn't right, and it's the other, literally the other side of the world, and it didn't work out. But fast forward a couple of years after that, and so I live in Knoxville, Tennessee now. I am a contractor to the Department of Energy, um, and I work at one of the a DOE site that's part of the nuclear security enterprise. Um,
Gotcha.
And so it's a different world. It's a very different world being a government contractor, um, but it's interesting at the same time.
Yeah. You're working in, you kind of like stayed within energy, you just kind of in a different segment of the landscape, it sounds
Yep.
like.
Yeah. Yeah, not the same industry, but not like a huge jump to something different. One thing that stood out to me that I think I've realized over my career is that I really like to see, like physically see the results of the work that I'm doing, and it's hard to get much more tangible than like seeing a big stockpile of what you mined for the day, or seeing material
Mm,
coming off a conveyor belt as your production is going full bore. Like that's just pretty awesome, and it's something that's easy for me to get my head around, and maybe makes it a little easier to appreciate the efforts that I'm putting forward.
totally. And so you're in this role
Hmm.
today. How does your how has your MBA helped you? How does it help you in your job today? And also just like you use this kind of like business school and personal kind of framework earlier. Maybe you want to use the same thing. Does your MBA help you at work, in your personal life? Like, how does it show up for you?
So I will say it shows up tremendously actually in both, um, but probably not in the way most folks would think. Like I haven't, sorry, my dog's barking. Haven't done like a DCF. Dude, chill out. Come here. Come here. I haven't had to do like a DCF in, I don't know, 4 years. So dealing with that type of numbers is not what I'm doing and using my MBA for. Very much more on the leadership and just employee interaction, engagement side of things. I think of it often, and then on my personal life, like they talk about the MBA being a transformative experience, and my way of thinking has certainly shifted through that process.
How you say it's like changed your way of thinking? How so?
Uh, just perspectives. I think the pre-business school, I very easily could have probably heard and would have heard some comments or statements that people made in class, and would have thought, man, that's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. This person's an idiot. Like that's just doesn't make any sense to me. However, they stick you in this classroom. You're with the same people every day for a whole year. You quickly realize that everyone there is there on a very justified basis. They're super intelligent. Everything they say is coming from a well-informed position, and it's like, okay, so that makes me think something's off, either not necessarily off with how I'm thinking, but there's a different way to think about this. And so it just has made me
Hmm.
much more open minded from that standpoint.
Yeah, same for me. Yeah, like they're coming from somewhere, and maybe I just don't know. I've never been
Hmm.
there. That's how I think about it. Nice. Yeah, that's a really good reflection, Nigel. Couple final questions
Sure.
here. Talking about how the MBA has had an impact on you. I actually want to go back to the 2 years at HBS on this reflection kind of track we're on right now. If you could go back to Boston um, and do it all over again, is there anything you would change about your time at HBS?
Hmm. Um, I maybe it's hard to say this because in that moment, wonderful world of FOMO, and time management is the most difficult thing you've got to be able to overcome, because there is no shortage of activities of things to do. I probably would have maybe done a little more, been a little more actively involved in a couple of clubs, just to get some of that experience with a couple of different groups. And maybe there's a couple of things that I said no to at the time because it was like, oh man, that's like another $500 sort of thing. That in hindsight,
Mm,
if I had said yes to two things and would have been out a grand, like yes, that's expensive, but it would have been worth it. So that's
it
probably
would have been worth it. Yeah, it would have been a small drop in the bucket that is the business school budget.
yes. Yeah, I mean that's not
Yeah.
to say go out and say yes to everything. I don't mean that, but I do think I maybe was a little too cautious in that regard, and maybe
Yeah,
would have urged myself if I could to do a couple more things than I did.
I would have changed that about my decisions too. When it came to budget, it's like you're already spending so much money here. Uh, yeah, figuring out where you're comfortable spending and maybe certain places more comfortable than I
Yeah.
was. I want to ask you. I want to follow up on your first point about being more involved in clubs and that sort of thing. And you also mentioned like time management
Hmm.
is like a big thing that you have to manage time when you're in business school. If you were to get more involved with clubs, what like in your mind when you're saying that, what would the trade off be? You're essentially moving time from one thing to clubs. Where would you be moving that time from?
Hmm. Now that is a wonderful question. I don't know where, what bucket it would have come from. Uh, yeah, yeah. I wish. I don't know
Yeah,
that I could have. I mean, I guess maybe
yeah.
prepared less for a few classes, but that would have been a slippery slope.
Well, I wasn't fishing for that. I wasn't fishing for that at all. That's straight from you.
Yeah, I will say, I got a cold call in Biggie, and that was brutal, but luckily I was prepared for it, and I think it went okay. But
Yeah.
that was about the most terrifying experience. Was sitting there waiting for Julio to see who his victim was for the day, and that's the. I think I got two, maybe three cold calls in my time at HBS, but that was one of them.
Yeah, let's just note that here. I think it's important to note how you never forget those cold calls. 10 years later, it's still. I can see it in your expression how vividly you remember that cold call in Biggie that
Yeah,
Julio put you
yeah.
on.
Julio. The other one I got was first semester in Tom. I was given just a slight heads up. We're sitting there before class, and our professor he came over and he just said, "Hey Nigel, it's going to be a big day for you." And I was like, "Oh
Like furiously flipping through the
yeah."
case that you didn't read last night.
I was
Um,
prepared, but it was like, let me figure out what happened to these cranberries. So it worked out though.
Amazing, amazing. All right. Last question, Nigel, because I've taken up a lot of your time already. But just advice. What advice, parting advice do you have for maybe people that are exploring pursuing an MBA, or maybe even folks that are in their MBA programs right now,
Hmm.
figuring out next steps, just navigating those 2 years of their life.
Yeah, I would probably say um, try to get clear expectations or know what your expectations are of what you're getting into. That preparation and reviewing the admissions process and doing all that will help to inform you some. Um, but really understand that piece. The other thing that maybe I would advise against. I think someone asked me what the ROI was at some point in time, and was it worth it from that standpoint? And for my specific situation, um, I'm sure the numbers don't look super favorable, just from a pure cash flow perspective, or not as favorable as one would expect. But that being said, if I could run it back with Section H 2016, I would do it in a heartbeat, no questions asked. All of the intangibles have been infinitely worth it, and so you cannot put a dollar value on that. So you got to be willing to experience some new things, be ready to have your mind changed. Um, but if you do that, I think it can. I think it can be worth it for just about anyone.
I think that's a wonderful note to wrap up here, Nigel. Thank you so much for your time. I think these these experiences and these insights are going to help a lot of people. So
You're
thank you.
welcome, Mike. Thank you. Good talking to you.